Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Mystery Theory. I've been prepping for this video for the last hour. Charged my computer, set up outside, beautiful fall colors. Till one of my neighbors decided to turn on something that you can hear in the background. But since I'm already here, I am going to try to finish today's video. Well, actually start it. So today's video, it's a story that needs a trigger warning. If you feel like taking a case regarding somebody underage will upset you, if you think that negligence or something not done for this underage person could affect you, this would be the perfect time to exit this video. I've covered lots of cases that involve people underage, but this one in particular, how the authorities didn't see this happening, it's a little bit overwhelming, and it may trigger something that I would not want you to go through. So please keep that in mind. If you're still here, I would love for you to leave a comment, an emoji, share what you think about this video, what you think about fall, and there's lines behind me because we're getting ready to put power in the property. Yes, it was basically a miracle, but it is happening. So I am going to set up a filming place so I can be in front of the camera a little bit more. So whatever you want to comment, by doing that, you're helping my channel with the algorithm that would be triggered, and this video would be shared with even more people. Having said that, let's get started with today's case. I'm gonna have some birds. This is the front of our property, and it's wild with blackberries, and there's a bunch of little creatures that live there, like raccoons and skunks, all kinds of birds. So I hope that you enjoy, hopefully, the good background noise. Let's talk about Victoria Climbie. This has a shorter background, but it surely put things in perspective for me, and the idea of counting your blessings. In this case, Victoria was 7 years old at the time, and she had one of those super fun and funny, kind of a contagious bubbliness in her, and she was good at dancing and singing. She was so good that everyone knew about her talents in their small town of village Adobo in Ghana. Now, this, if you don't know, is located in West Africa. And at the time, they were going through a civil war that, of course, brought lots of poverty and overall bad economics, and people were struggling. So they knew that in order for Victoria to find a better future, she would have to move out of Adobo, or village Adobo. So her parents were looking for a way out. Sadly, with the economic pressure and the troubles they were going through, not only as a nation but as a small village, they had no means to get out and look for a better place to raise Victoria and hopefully give her a better future and possibilities with her singing and dancing. At the time, a family member passed away. This would have been Victoria's great uncle. Family from all over visited the small village, including her great aunt Marie, who was visiting from France. She came showing her riches, expensive jewelry, her good clothes, and impressed the entire family. She was also coming to pick up one of her nieces, Anna Kowal. The idea was to take her out of the village and help her get a brighter future in France. However, Anna's parents decided against it last minute. So Aunt Marie offered this opportunity to Victoria. She experienced Victoria's dancing and singing and thought that she could not only give her a good education, but also could help her get out of the country. I'm gonna have to keep going. I hope that this doesn't end up being a disaster. The thought was nice, but you still have people somewhere around in the woods, and it does trouble. Sound troubles. So, Victoria was fluent in French, and so she wouldn't have problem moving to France. So her parents agreed, but they encountered a problem. She didn't have a passport. So they decided that since she looked a lot like her cousin, the one that last minute decided to stay, that they were going to use Anna's passport. As soon as they arrive in France, she, in her own child naive ways, realized that the aunt was lying. Marie was not working, struggling. She lived out of government benefits or welfare, and she also was using Victoria to get this kind of child support that you can get when you are a single mother or somebody taking care of a child. She enrolled little Victoria in classes, and this was part of getting that benefit that she needed to go to school. However, she wouldn't take her to school, and she started to miss more than 80% of the time that she was supposed to be in school. When they realized this, they were investigating Marie, and they realized that she was taking advantage of welfare services and that she acquired the services in a fraudulent way. So she was off of them, and being caught, she decided to move to England on April 1999. According to her research, England was a wonderful place that welcomed immigrants. So she sets or gets a place or somehow settled in Ealing, West London, and there she started to apply for benefits. She was informed that there was a long list ahead of her for housing and that it would take quite a while. She was very frustrated and visited the offices at least a dozen times while she was complaining of having no place to live. She would also bring Victoria, who looked very, in my opinion, abused, dirty, improper clothing, and hoping to make somebody feel bad for her, but nothing happened. So on June of that same year, she decided to visit one of her family members, Esther. The whole idea was to make her feel bad about Victoria and her struggles with money and get some money. Esther caught her in the act, and I'm not sure if she gave her money, but she called Child Protective Services or Social Services so they would check on little Victoria. Then they filed a report but did absolutely nothing. Now I'm going to keep the details to a minimum, but it's important to explain what Victoria went through. Marie, at this point, decided to get a job, as she should have in the beginning, but she also decided to get this man in her life, and his name was Carl Manning. He was 27 years old, and he was providing also to the household. Now, at this point, Victoria had to be enrolled in school, but she didn't understand English. She never really attended school and was kind of lost. She was also left with a babysitter or a person that would take care of her, but she wasn't licensed. However, she saw how badly abused Victoria was, so she decided to take her to the hospital. When they checked her in the hospital, they found cuts in her hands, cigarette burns, and scabies on her skin. Now, she would say, Marie later would explain this, saying that Victoria was playing with a box of razor blades, which I am sorry, but that is a bunch of bullcrap. I understand an accident, but the way that she explained this, like Victoria was a problematic child, that she allowed her to play with stuff that could hurt her, really makes no sense to me. Now, she was released back to her aunt, and a month later she was back in the hospital. This time she was burned. Marie would explain that Victoria put her head under boiling hot water and that she burned herself trying to find some relief from her skin condition. Now, Victoria acted very happy when she was in the hospital. She was singing and dancing again and putting on a show to the staff. She had to stay in the hospital for 2 weeks, and those were some of her happiest moments away from home, despite the burns and the pain. She also was changing her behavior when her aunt came around. Eventually, she was released and sent back home with his aunt. An officer was supposed to pay her a visit. This officer later said that she never followed up because she was afraid she was going to get the scabies or that skin condition. But a social worker was assigned. Now, this social worker was not the most experienced social worker, and her name was Lisa Arthbury, and she was supposed to keep an eye on this family and make sure that Victoria was not being abused. the first visit she paid to this family, she noticed that the apartment was amazing for a little family. It was clean, it was organized, and something she didn't see before in previous cases. Lisa was supposed to be supervised, but she wasn't, and I feel like she missed a lot of signs. This was a torture space, really. Victoria was at this point where she was so abused and so scared that she started wetting the bed. She'd never done this before other than being a little kid, but the abuse was getting to her and she was doing it very frequently. So the solution between Marie and Carl was to put her inside the bathtub. No cushions, no nothing. To make things worse, they decided to put her inside a garbage bag. So if she peed or pooped herself, she would have to live in it until they decided to get her out. When they took her out of this bag, they typically would tie her hands in the back and burn her with cigarettes so she couldn't move or defend herself. They also did something terrible. They would give her food and she'd have to eat it with her mouth as if she was a dog. At one point, Marie broke her toes with a hammer, and all this was happening as the social worker continued her scheduled visits. Marie continued to push for housing, and at this point, the social worker said, unless there is a risk situation for Victoria, your name needs to stay on the list. So Marie decided to report Carl as a sexual predator that was abusing Victoria. When they told her that they would have to take Victoria to the doctor to confirm this and send Carl to prison, she withdrew her accusation, and you would think that they still check, but they didn't. At this point, Marie decided to ghost the social worker. She wouldn't open the door or pick up the phone. So, on February 25th of the year 2000, their case was closed under no further action classification. That same day, in the afternoon, Victoria was taken to the hospital. She was not breathing and she had hypothermia, multiple organ failure, and malnutrition. 128 trauma markings were also listed. She was taken then to the best intensive care unit in Europe. However, she still died the following day at 3:15 p.m. with her little body not being able to take it anymore. The warrants went out for Carl and Marie, who didn't want to cooperate in the beginning. Eventually, Carl admitted that he punched and kicked Victoria several times. Marie didn't admit too much, but they did agree in one thing. They believed she was possessed by demons. They were both charged with murder in the year, I think it was at the end of the year 2000. And they Carl pled guilty to manslaughter and child cruelty. Marie was several times seen chuckling in court, and she looked like the possessed one over here. She got life in prison plus 10 years for child cruelty, and she blamed the government in some kind of a conspiracy theory. But really, is that even enough to pay for 18 months of torture of a little girl? Nobody protected her. Not even those in higher places. No social worker, no government entity. In the end, Carl accepted his sentence and seemed remorseful. But Marie never showed any signs. Little Victoria's remains were sent back home, and she was buried in the Ivory Coast, now free of abuse and pain. Now, I hope that this leaves something in the beginning. Despite how hard times are, or how hard is your circumstance today, I hope that we all learn to count our blessings. Sadly, this situation of people trying to leave their countries and move to better places with more opportunities for their children, it's a reality even today. And their circumstances as a family was completely different of what some of us can be experiencing today. Living where they lived at the time that they were living in their country, in their village. I understand the way that you feel as a parent. You can totally relate of the need to provide for your children. The sadness that would take over you if you can't feed them one day. I just can't even put myself in that position. So my hope is to not come across as judgy, but maybe to put things in perspective for those of us that feel the pressure of today's upside down world and feel like it's a worst case scenario, to count our blessings. I'm sure these parents had the best intentions for this little girl, but evil never sleeps. It is always there. It is always waiting for the opportunity. Despite being a friend, a family member, it's just, I can't even imagine or put myself in her parents' shoes. What were they thinking? What were they doing? Were they trying to contact Aunt Marie? If you understand, this Aunt Marie was the sister of, one of her grandparents. So it's almost like unbearable, the idea of Marie doing something to this girl and the possibility of her using this child for her own benefit. What a twisted case. She may not been looking for a victim like the typical killers. She wasn't abducting this little girl, but she had a purpose. She had a motive. She knew where to find these kids. Such a shame and such a horrible ending for this family. Thank you for requesting this case, despite the sadness of it. I think it shows us that criminals not really have to be the kind that we think. Sometimes they're not strangers. Sometimes they just hide in plain sight. Thanks for being here on another soft spoken Wednesday. I apologize for the background noise in the beginning. My camera is flashing, my computer is dying, so it is time to say goodnight. I'll see you guys back here on Friday with a new video.